back to the State and Maine podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Bryant, and today we are lucky enough to be here with Steve Sheldon, and we are sitting inside one of Bowling Green's best stories, Murder Mansion. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you very much. It's fun to be here. Look forward to talking about all the folklore and the history behind this place. It's been fun remodel project.
And the little bit of research I've done on the property, it's got to be one of Bowling Green's best storied properties. Sometimes the stories are true, sometimes the stories may not be true, but luckily the murder story is fairly well documented at this point, and I'm sure we'll cover some of that today. But even more impressive is me getting a little 5-minute tour here as we walked in and set up. The renovation you've done at this property is just absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you. My wife is great at this kind of thing, and she first looked at it and realized that it had some potential, but we weren't convinced 100%. As we begin the remodel, in a home this old, you run into a lot of things that you never expected. So there was some portion of time that I thought we may put a little into it and maybe resell it to somebody, but honestly, truthfully, within a few months, it became the Sheldon home. We were gonna do it so that maybe our kids or grandkids could be here one day. So we're glad we did it, and I'm so proud of the job Terry did designing and getting it together.
Just looking around, you can tell you did it in your style. I hate to call it the no expense spared style, but it's the finite detail and the paying attention to the history as well as the new modern technologies and the amenities, and taking something that was built in the 1850s and bringing it up structurally and making it sound again, and opening up the problems and fixing them as you find them. And half of that's digging into it and digging through layers and layers of, well, I guess it'd be 170 years worth of floorboards and walls and bricks and windows and doors and everything else. But exactly we all know you have a history of building some homes and being a pretty major developer. Have you ever played with anything of this age previous to this?
I never have. The history, I wasn't fully aware of all the history behind this house. And everything I've ever done's usually been from the ground up, and a lot of the developing and things that we've done, even other houses we built, were all that way. But this was our first attempt to get into something like this and see how it turns out. So sure was a learning experience for us, but in the end, it feels like home.
Tell us a few of the fun things you learned from, whether it be how huge the original lumber was, to the multi-course structural brick, to the way the house is built in bays or banks. Tell us some of the more interesting things that you weren't expecting as you
I think that it was built in the antebellum period, mm-hmm. and it wasn't uncommon in those days for an antebellum home to be built in sections. Mm-hmm. Lots of prominent families from about 1850 or 60 to about 1900, they'd come in and they would add on a little more piece and add on a little more piece. And so I found that out as I began to remodel it. I would find, like all your walls in this house are 18 inches thick, interior and exterior. There's a reason for that, is because people kept building bricks on the back of bricks on the back of bricks, and just a lot that I learned there. The old oak joists are still down there, mm-hmm. but when I found them, I had to address the levelness. You could put a marble on one end of this floor and it'd roll all the way to the end of the house. So there was just a lot there that I had fun in some ways finding, and I'd tell all the subcontractors and the general contractor that was here, hey, if you find a treasure or body in the wall, let me know. We may have something here. We may have a real story. So we never found any bodies, no treasures. So we had a good time. But I think some of those features, the add-ons that you recognize were done prior to me, mm-hmm.
I
thought that was interesting. That I thought, gosh, this is like a third shift of add-ons. And so then as you begin to read the research, you see that people did add on and add on and on. We got towards the middle of the house and found the original exterior and found that there was a stairway that ran all the way up the side of the house up to the upstairs, and that was common in those days.
But it was completely hidden.
Yes, completely hidden. It was gone, and we exposed that and saw that and thought, well, can we do anything with it? But it was it sure made us think about the history even more. And then, you had the whole hidden room thing, and that was completely in place and perfect, and the trap door, and you open up a closet, and you end up opening up this trap door, and it goes down to a hidden room. So a lot of that was pretty amazing that we found. And then you look back in history of what those rooms were used for, and just a lot of cool stories.
What do you believe this one was used for? Cold storage, or a safe place, or a safe room?
I think a safe place. I think back in the day you had the Union and Confederate armies that were fighting the Civil War. Just a few years later, the Civil War started after it had begun construction. But I do believe in the beginning it was probably used as or maybe a hideaway, and then as the Civil War started, there are rumors that they used this particular location because it's so close to the Fairview Cemetery and the Fairview area, Cemetery Road. That was a Confederate defensive fort that was well known back in those days. So they have some proof, and it was written about. I read it, that this was used as a hospital for a little while because of the location of it being so close to fighting and injured. I can imagine. I've thought of injured soldiers that were in that room hiding. So yeah, your mind can go a lot of places.
And it's hard to have this. Time to me gets hard to compound when you go back 150, 170 years. But, February of '62 was a big day for Bowling Green with the Civil War going on. Mm-hmm. And that would have dated this house to what, 5 or 6 years old?
Yeah,
this would have been
5 or 6 years old.
This would have been a new modern home at the time. Yeah. So it probably was a great place to use as a hospital or some other use for the war.
Yeah. They even talked after the war. There were, the multiple owners would, as people kept adding on to it, it became known as a place where a lot of events took place, a lot of get-togethers there in the city. And it was, in those days, this was out in the rural community. So yeah, that's pretty. But the hospital I think it was a real deal.
In a little bit of my research, I went trying to figure out how old this house was for Bowling Green. Do you have any idea of, and I'm not going to say that this is an exhaustive list. If I missed any, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But do you have any idea of how many other this old or older friends this home has for this area?
I have no idea.
I'll run through a few of them. There's one up on Park Street. There's a couple on State Street, of course, Boxwood, and the one across the street from it. The one across the street from it in the PVA is dated at 1880, but it's believed that it was built much earlier, sometime around the 30s or 40s, and then moved to that location is where about the time it gets its dating. Of course, there was the Kinloch building out on the river that even predates the 1800s for its early structures. And then one of the more famous homes was the Mariah Moore House, where Mariah's is. Of course, it's questionable as to what age you want to call that house due to the number of fires that it's had and those sorts of things.
Right.
But this time period and before for Bowling Green is so rare because in the 60s or in the 1860s, so much of it burnt. Most of downtown was lost. Most of the larger homes were lost, and we lost tons and tons of architecture just due to one side of the war versus the other side of the war, not wanting the other one to have the resources available in the area. So the fact that you have taken it and made it new and useful again and preserved the true historical touches of the home that still survived, I can't say thank you enough for taking on the time, the effort, the energy, the financial responsibility of it. It's a true undertaking that you have to. If you didn't have it when you bought it, I guarantee you grew a place in your heart for it as the process went on.
I sure did. I think that, that's a great way to put it. I think as I continued to roll through this process, it was just, it felt like home the day I walked in it. But now it took Terry and maybe the grandkids and the kids a little while to kind of get used to it. But it felt like home the day when you get in here and you run into, like I said, 18-inch walls, and you think, Golly. And so everything you built, if you added it on, and and we added a few things on in here, we had to make sure they were 18-inch walls. And then that's I can't say I've ever built an 18-inch wall until now.
But you carried the character of the old into
Absolutely.
the new, and it's really hard to see where old stops and new starts here. I did tell your wife when she walked through a little while ago, I haven't been in one of your homes in probably the last 15 years, but
How about that?
I can, walking in, if I hadn't known it was yours, I would have been able to walk in and say, I know whose this is. There's certain style and flair, and
She's held the same style a long time.
and while this is very different than your old home, definitely the history of it and the size and scale is different, and the detail of this one is just on a different level. But there are certain definite points there that I would have been able to tell it was hers. Moving into the fun part of this conversation about the murders and going from the Ewings to the Martins, and the Martins living here. I know they added the Greek columns out front. That's fairly well documented. Were you able to determine whether or not the Martins added anything else to the home?
It looked to me like it was just more the porch, the columns, and tried to give it a front, to give it a look that they were looking for. We saw some things as we were remodeling, but we felt like certainly the front part of the house didn't used to be the front part of the house. There was about 10 to 12 foot, maybe 15 foot added on to the front of this house. But we felt like it happened before the Martins. Now, I have no proof of that, but somebody did it, and it just looked to me like that was done. But maybe they did it, because obviously we came in 12 foot. We were trying to get through an interior wall and found out we had 18 inches of brick.
It's the one we're sitting in.
That's
right
the one
here.
we're sitting in right now.
This case opening is
case
what you
opening
believe
was
to be
the original front of the house. Yeah.
And to put all this in time perspective again, the Martins got the house, I believe, in 1918, which would have been about the time of the first publicly used cars in the area.
Yeah.
So predating the Martins, the Ewings lived here with horse and buggy.
Oh, yeah.
The Martins lived here for 30-ish years up to the murders, somewhere
Up to,
in the 50, 48, 50, somewhere in there.
48 was the murders. So
Now, let's hear the murder story via the homeowner.
Via the homeowner. Well, so anyway, the murders was part of, in the book that Wes Switek so elegantly wrote, The Cemetery Road Murders. And we read that book 3 days after we bought the house. We went to Germany and we read that book so we could learn about the house, because we just didn't know a lot. And I read it when I was in Germany, and I came back, excited and somewhat confused, because that was true crime. It wasn't folklore. And so, but in the book, I quickly noticed that the murder took place as you come in the front door. Immediately to your left, there was a master bedroom right there, is where it originally started. And when we bought the home, it had a pool table in it. And so as it turned out, as we remodeled it and redesigned it, we put our bedroom right back where the original bedroom was. Where the murders took place is exactly where our bed sits right over the spot. So we're not eked out by the whole thing, obviously, but I thought that was there's one thing in preserving something, but there's another thing going that far. So I told my wife, I said, man, I don't know, I hope that works out, but we've had a good time. But the murders happened. The guy came through. A guy named Kilgore, Harry Ed Kilgore, who was a student at Western, was dating a gal named Ruth McKinney, and the Martins had a son named Stoney Martin, and he had Miss McKinney. Right? Yeah, I think his Miss McKinney broke up with Mr. Kilgore, and then started dating Stoney Martin, which was Dr. Martin's wife and their only son. And so they say the murder happened to Kilgore. They said from what I've read, the double murder was Kilgore confessed to that, and they say this love triangle, this thing where the Martin's son had married his old flame, and there was just some jealousy there. So they say that was the motive, but there's a whole lot of rumors that go on beyond that. Was he accompanied? Did he have help in the murder situation? And there was a music teacher there at Western that had some link to the murder. So there was always this thing that all the facts didn't come out because he actually confessed and got sent away and that type of thing. But it happened, and it happened right close to where we stay every night. But it's that part is a true story. So
being a large fan of true crime and looking into the story a little bit, there's some fascinating pieces. I believe Stoney was in his 50s. The young lady was 18, 19 years old, dating the guy at Western, and they end up getting married and go on their honeymoon. The murder happens during their honeymoon after the boyfriend found out that
that's right.
They were married, and he was upset. And I imagine the idea was that he was going to come and murder the two that had been married, but got the parents instead. Something I learned from you today is evidently he came through the back door, not the front door. And we walked down the hallway where Mr. Martin was shot first, and then went to try to help his wife and got shot a couple more times. And then his wife got shot, and for some reason they were beaten with a flashlight and a sandbag or something.
And it was an interesting situation. He actually went to the front door first, and apparently a dog or something started barking. He goes around to the back, comes through the back door, comes all the way down the hall, and then kind of just steps back out the front door for a minute. I don't know whether he was. Anyway, at that point is when Mr. Martin met up with him, and unfortunately things didn't work out good for him or Miss Martin. So.
Evidently, you mentioned the possible music teacher, and then there was another idea that possibly the young lady and the young man had teamed up and said, "You two get married. You take off and take him on his honeymoon. I'll go take care of his parents. You all come back. We'll take care of the Stoney later, and then we'll run off with all the money." That sounds a little more believable than the music professor.
Yeah.
But
and there's a lot of people that believe that is the case.
Who knows what it is?
Yeah,
we're talking about a 75-year-old story at this point.
Yeah.
Something you may not know, but or I guess I'll ask this first. I'm sure there are stories of this place being haunted and their spirits, and I'm sure that you have your own beliefs on whether or not stuff like that even exists or whatever. And I don't mean for it to go there, but
no, that's okay.
But what are the best ghost stories or whatever that I'm sure people have come up to you and told you since purchasing the home? Just what are the best ones? What are the most fun ones?
Some of them were just people come to me and say, "Man, when we were kids, the big deal was because it sat vacant for 10 or 12 years, right after the murders, and they said, it was like a rite of passage for all of the teenagers to have to come and walk through this at night, and they would all come out of here with a story. They saw Mr. Martin setting a shadow on the staircase, or the blood was on the floor in the bedroom. Then there was a darkened spot on the floor. I don't know if it was wood or at this point it surely had to be old wood, but I guess it could have started as blood. But anyway, there was just a lot of cool, funny stories that people have come up and told me. Said, well, I remember being a kid and got dared. Everybody got dared to come up to the murder mansion and actually go through it. And those were the years it sat vacant that. And when Romanza, and I think Romanza and Ralph Johnson bought it in '60, they really embraced that type of folklore as well, and made a big deal out of it around Halloween, and so they really kept it going. And I think this house has just kept going because everybody that's had it has. There's been you've had true crime, you've had folklore, you've had the Civil War history. It just the whole thing just kind of keeps reinventing itself, and it's been fun to learn about, really.
I don't see you getting rid of the Murder Mansion name as much as you might want to turn it into the Sheldon Estate or Sheldon House or whatever else.
Yeah.
I think the Murder Mansion, once a book's written about it and it's lived for 75, 80 years, Murder Mansion's going to be hard to get rid of.
Yeah, I'd like to think one day it could be like the Sheldon home or something, but you can see even how much we've embraced it. If you go to try to get Wi-Fi on your phone, you'll see the Wi-Fi's name Sheldon MM.
I like that.
So we've embraced it to that extent.
Yeah, I like that. One of the other more interesting pieces of the murder story that I think I'm going to get this correct is that the gentleman who killed the Martins served 15 or 16 years.
That's right.
Moved down to Florida. Mm-hmm. And then the young lady, Stoney, had died. She had remarried, had a couple kids. And then she left.
She ended up going to Florida.
Going to Florida and meeting up with the killer of the Martin. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up.
No,
it's like
that's what makes your story earlier a little more believable, because she ends up back in Florida, and I heard the end of that story of how he ended up dying, Kilgore. Did you hear that?
Was it a car crash or motorcycle?
He was on a bicycle.
Bicycle? Okay.
Yeah, he was on a bicycle. Got run over in Florida, and that's how he died. So, she really didn't have a lot of luck, even when she went back for the second round. And
my understanding is of the estate, there wasn't much given to her at any time. Stoney didn't inherit all of it, and she really didn't get much of it on the next round.
No, there was an inheritance issue, and that's why it sat vacant for 10 years. And eventually, I guess somebody got hold of it, whether it was a financial institution or somebody, or trust or an estate or something, but ended up, Romanza and Ralph ended up buying it. So.
This is an interesting.
She was by the way, fantastic woman, and we all miss Romanza.
Oh, sure. Interesting little key tidbit here. Of the Ewings, the Martins, the Johnsons, and now the Sheldons, from my research, those are the owners of this property from new. The average, without figuring you all into it, the average time spent in the house is approximately 42 years. So you've got a few years to go. I believe you've been here, what, 2 or 3 years now?
Well, I might want to make sure my kids hear that, because I'm not sure I'll make it. I'm 66 now, so who knows? You never know. I may be hobbling up and down these hallways in 40 years.
Well, Bowling Green will be very lucky to have you still taking care of this place and preserving the history and the character.
Well, I'd like for the kids. I think they will. They've embraced it as much as we have. They're having fun, and we'll hopefully want to, out of the 5 kids, maybe they'll all move in here together. I don't know. Maybe our grandkids will move in here together. Who knows? It'll be our grandkids, I hope.
So in another bit of my research with the home, I don't know if you'll believe this or not, but I believe in 1966, Romanza paid a whopping $66,000 for the home.
Wow.
Or excuse me, no, she bought it in 1966. She paid $39,000.
$39,000.
Excuse me. Do you have any idea of what kind of quality or condition the house might have been in at that time?
There was and you may know who this was, but there was a professor I had heard, and I'm not sure if that was pre-Romanza. It might have been, and I can't remember her name. Somebody told it to her that actually owned this house for a little while. And she had a little art studio out in this back one-car garage, and we'll have to do some more research on that. But right after we bought it, somebody was telling me about it, because I'll tell you, well, you can take out any part you want to, but James Cook, I was talking to him, and he was actually doing an auction here. And the lady was an artist whenever the auction went out. That may have been who Romanza got it from. But when it went out, they were selling her paintings out front. And James Cook remembered being at that auction. He did the auction, and he remembered who bought a few of her paintings, and they were let's just say a little more modernized and upbeat and revealing than most artwork in those days. And somebody he knew had bought a painting and didn't know what he was buying, and so he had a big laugh over that. But so that made me realize that there was actually another owner in there too.
Well, the PVA historical data that I researched went back to 66. And 66 minus 12 takes it to 58-ish, which lines up with approximately the Martin timeline.
Right. Maybe somebody just leased it or something. I'm not sure.
I'm sure somebody will be nice enough to type in the comments and fill us in on the rest of that story.
Somebody
here locally will have that.
Yeah, it was a professor. I remember that, and I don't know if she was an art teacher or whatever, but anyway, it was a really good artist and sold paintings and stuff. So, I don't know how long she was here.
But it's your understanding, Romanza did a fairly large renovation of the home.
Absolutely. I think Romanza got it and really did her best to restore it, and or at least try to get it back to some resemblance of what it was, or just structurally get it to where it could be lived in. And that they obviously did a good job. They were here a long time, and so and then added a little piece on here and there as well. And then of course the next owners, Norm and Jimmy Lou Johnson, they did the same. They put their touch on it, added a few pieces to it. And so, again, this is not uncommon. Really, it's funny. Back in the antebellum days, that's really kind of how they built homes. Certainly these style homes, pieces at a time, owners at a time. And it's odd that here we are all these years later, and we're still adding on little pieces at a time and trying to keep the main guts of the house in place. So.
Well, it's kind of funny. The next place I'm going to go, sitting here asking for the comment section to help us out. I'm sure the comment section was fun, and I remember reading parts of it as people would drive by and take pictures of the windows changing, the paint going on, those sorts of things. And I want to tell you all today that they have done their work. They've done their due diligence. They have put in the quality, the time, and the effort. But it's difficult having such a almost neighborhood-owned, city-owned piece of property, and I don't mean owned, but everybody feels like they own their piece of it.
That's right. Everybody
has their memory and their opinion. And how tough was that for you during the process?
Yeah, I hated to see that, but I knew it was coming. Like I told my wife, I said, we're not going to change a lot, certainly structurally throughout, other than repair it and get it right. But then, for us to preserve that master bedroom, we had to have closets and bathrooms over on this side. But that balanced out the front of the house. I didn't think people would get too upset about that. And it seemed like that was fine. When we took the most criticism is when we painted it. Mm-hmm. And quite honestly, we didn't paint it all the way towards to almost the end because we were forced to paint it because as we put the brand new windows in, those old 175-year-old bricks were falling off of the structure, and we did our best to put them back on. Actually, we collected the old brick, had a masonry come in and put the old brick back around the windows, and did everything we could to keep that there. But we couldn't keep the old windows; they were absolutely like standing in air.
And when you say old windows, I don't want people to believe that you had the original 1850s windows. I mean, that'd be almost impossible. But you probably had some. Early 1930s, 40s,
I don't know
50s.
What they put in them, but it was like it still had the storm windows.
Gotcha.
And then when you got all that, it just doesn't match the look that we were trying to get. And my main thing was just thermally, they didn't hold any heat, they didn't hold any air. So I wanted to put new windows. So when we put the new windows in, and after we even spent a lot of time trying to repair around the windows and get it all back. Once I got it all back together, I looked up at it and it just looked like a jigsaw puzzle around all the windows because there was just no way to match the mortar, to match the brick.
After doing all you could.
After all,
because I know you tried everything.
I did.
I guarantee you were out here trying to stain the brick, the mortar.
That's right.
Trying to do. I mean, I've done the same things on other buildings because you hate to take and paint a building.
Yeah.
But when you have mismatched brick, mismatched mortar, you have to patch, you have to fix, you have to replace.
That's right.
You have to fix your settling and cracking, and the only way to make it all look one again is really with a good fresh coat of paint.
Oh yeah, it was probably 40 windows throughout the house, and you gotta be reasonable about it when you're in construction. I mean, I've like I said, I've had to work around things before, but this was just one of those things where, and my wife had already mentioned that we may end up needing to paint it white, and from a budgetary standpoint, I'd much rather left it the way it was. But when I saw it, I know I can't put this much into it, and then every day I walk up to it, see these jigsaw puzzle bricks around all the windows, and it just didn't have a finished look to it. So anyway, the white paint, I've gotten 90% of people have told me how well and how much they like it. That really did the work for them. So maybe they're less historians than others, but it's died down. Everybody's been real nice about it, and it was just at the very beginning when it was just such a shock to look back here and see it. But now people have given us a little grace and understand it, and we're good. I think everybody else is too.
Kind of a two-parted question here for you. How far did the renovation go from I know you fixed everything structurally. I know you kind of rebuilt the foundation, or not necessarily the foundation, but you got it back right. From a solid footing standpoint.
Right.
But from a mechanical standpoint, HVAC to electrical to plumbing to all the systems in the house, how far did you go with all that?
We put an additional brand new 200-watt electrical all the way through it. Now I'm not an expert in all that stuff, but but we did install some new. Then we kept some of the old.
Okay.
And then the HVAC systems, we were fortunate enough structurally, we could go in and put 6 brand new HVAC units and run brand new ductwork. And now we had to have some pretty small guys from the HVAC company crawl up and do this front part of the house. But we got them all in there and just been absolutely elated about it. So we did that. We, of course, all new paint, and we did a whole bunch of, we took that old antebellum trim look that Norman and Jimmy Lou had done such a great job of preserving. We held on to that, and then we took it a step further and went up in the ceilings and did some beam work that also is stair step down to have an antebellum look to it. So that's all through the house. And so anywhere we opened up a room to maybe give us a little bit more of an open look, we stayed with the 18-inch walls and the paneled look, So yeah, there was not. We really we stayed with really the exact look that it had back in the antebellum-style home.
So after it being here for 170 years, I know you've had several skilled laborers in here.
Mm-hmm.
What are the predictions you hear for how long of a life this house has to go now that it's basically been made new again? Even though you can only make old stuff as new as you can,
Right?
It's basically a new building once again.
Oh yeah, Everybody that has been in the home, certainly the structural guys that I had come in and evaluate the foundation and all that stuff early on. We put together a little plan to, that's not seen, but it's there. And that plan, they came out after they were done and told me that if there's ever bad weather anywhere in Bowling Green, everybody in Bowling Green should be in this house. So structurally, it is very, very sound, and it's makes me feel good to know that it'll be here another couple hundred years at least. That's the way I feel about it.
It's just amazing to think that the homes they build today. I'm not going to make a prediction as to how long they're going to last, but they just aren't built the same.
No,
the brick's not the same. The structure's not the same. The roof systems aren't the same. Like you just said, here you have a safe room underground, but there's no point in getting out of bed because your room is basically a bomb shelter. 18-inch walls all the way around you, and wood joists you can't go to the market and buy.
No, yeah, it's a real, it's a fort. I guess maybe it's probably not a bad thing to call it. Maybe they could have set up in here during the war, but it's really definitely put back together, and we're excited about it. Again, it was more than what I anticipated ever putting into it, but now that it's over with, I guess if we survive it, we'll be here for a long time.
Another fun question or two, just things I don't know the answers to. Maybe you do. Mm-hmm. This was originally known as the Ewing House, who was fairly well known. He was a farmer. Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea as to what the size of the original farm or estate would have been?
I tried to. Somebody else asked me that, and just from me being in every single wall, I was able to come up with, I knew how much got added to the front of the house. I also know that it had to go all the way back to the underground room in the back or from the original structure. And then I had that stairway that went up the side of that house, which I knew had to be the original external. So if you use those measurements, you're really talking about 30 to 40 foot across the front and about 50 foot to 60 foot towards the back. So I'm going to guess, 1,500 to 2,000 was pushing it, but so nothing, now today it's
nothing on the scale that it is today.
No, it's 6,400 now. So
and
that was after many owners added.
Do you have any idea as to what the original land area might have been? I've heard rumor that it might have been 120 acres.
Yeah.
But I don't have any confirmation.
The only thing I've ever seen is just vast farmland, and this was sitting near the cemetery road and was just very prominent for all the soldiers coming by during the war and everything, and was used for a lot of different things. But this was sitting up on the front of the acreage, and he actually, during the murders, back to that, Kilgore kind of came back through the back of those the farmland and made his way to the back of the house from the other side of the property.
So you believed it remained a larger land estate
Yes.
until after the murders and after the Martins were here.
I do, and eventually that land got sold off, and it wouldn't surprise me somewhere around, towards the end of when the Martins were
1950s,
gone.
60s?
Yeah, 60, yeah, 50, 60.
And if this sat in the front of the estate, then I guess Briarwood would have been where the farm would have been for this.
Yeah, and then other people that have a better history, may know different. It's just these are the kind of pieces of the puzzle I'm putting together as I began to tear into this thing.
I'm by no means trying to say any exacts or
Yeah.
that we know every
Yeah.
single detail, but it's just fun to look back.
We'll get a call from Wes Witek, who wrote that book, right after this. He'll comment on it and tell us, you guys need to come talk to me. But we read your book. I did, Wes. So
he'll call us, tell us how bad of a job we did. And
Yeah,
a couple of historians will say,
I should have remembered
you
the book.
missed that one or you missed this one. But those are things we'll have to live with. But Steve, I can't say thank you enough for doing this with me today and giving us access to the house and telling the story of the house and the story of the murders from the current owner's perspective. And just the willingness to participate in this. I can't say thank you enough.
Look, it's been a fun time. I figured at some point it would be a good time to just kind of sit down and talk about, what we did. We're in now, and our family loves it, and we hope the Sheldon home can be shared by everybody in town and enjoy and come by and embrace the folklore. We enjoy the whole Murder Mansion folklore that goes right along with it, and we the historical district contacted us not too long ago, and they still come by almost, I guess it's every week on Friday or Saturday night with a trolley and talk about the home, and they sit out on Cemetery Road and have a little speaker, and so I don't know how often I look out there and catch them every now and then. So and they're more than welcome to come in the driveway if they're watching this, and go around the circle and. And heck, if we're home, you can bring a bunch of them through. It'd be.
You might want to be careful offering that here on social media. Your door will never stop swinging.
Yeah, well, it never stops swinging now. We never thought. This location we loved, because it's right in the middle of the town, and it's part of the reason why we thought, okay, this would be a good place to kind of sit down. And it's only a few blocks away from where I built my business, and it had. Entry from the back, entry from the front. It's got a couple acres of land. We just thought this would be a place to be, and little did we know it would be. It has definitely tripled or quadrupled our the traffic in and out of the home more than we ever thought, and we're grateful for that.
Sure.
So we're getting old, and we love to visit. We love to enjoy and tell stories and be fun. And I'm still working full time, so you'll have to wait till I get off around 5 or 6. But y'all welcome to come in.
Well, I think you get to add another feather to your cap here. I think we probably both need to still work on our historian feather, but historic preservationist, I think, has definitely been added into the general contractor and developer and house builder. All the different titles you've carried over your years. But you've done just an absolutely incredible job, and
well, thank you.
I know I've said it 2 or 3 times, but Bowling Green really needs more people who care this much to take care of the older, difficult to deal with, but fun to love properties.
Well, yeah, it was that. It was a labor of love, but the thing is I couldn't have done it without my wife. She had a great help with a designer that she used on our last house. And they did a great job putting together a design that would make this house, help it preserve its integrity, but also help it become more functional for the family. And some things that she really always wanted, we were able to figure it out with this house. So it's been a fun. Now that it's over, it's fun. Yeah. But anyway, I'm glad you came by. I'm glad you had us out, and we could get some of this out in the air and let folks talk about it. So.
Well, again, you've done a marvelous job. Thank you for the access. If you happen to have a home that's similar and has other old-time stories and would like it featured, feel free to reach out. We would love to take a look at it. I'm sure there won't be one as storied as Murder Mansion here, but we would love to hear from you. Thanks again for joining us.